most of my time viewing what I want from the outside. I comb it over like it's the scene of a crime. The only guilty I find staring back at me in the mirror at night, stuck in place, just waiting for a green light. But I can't lie awake for someone else to say I can live my the only comfort I've found is blending in with another crowd. When things go wrong, we'll pass the blame around. 'Cause I can't lie awake for someone to say I can live my life, my life.
Good morning. I hope you are doing well. Let me know that you can see me. Let me know you can hear me. I am coming into you from my hotel room in Scottsdale. I'm here for a live stream that we are doing the last couple days. Yeah, cool Arizona. It's not very cool, man. It is 100 degrees. It was 90. It was over 90 degrees last night driving to the hotel at about 9 o'clock at night. So it's still hot. But yeah. There's some good golf courses here, but that's it. But I didn't want to not do the live, so I decided I'm just going to do it from the hotel room. I'm doing it through a different technology, so hopefully it works okay. I can already see a few things that I can't see, but we'll make it work. This is about you, and this is about trying to get some stuff going. So these are, as I said, we got Greece in the house. This is awesome. So I wish I could read the name. I can't read the name, but that's all right. Doing well. So what I do with these is I want to talk about something for a moment. Then I'm gonna go to your questions. If you have questions, I have questions that came in. I have an Ask Mel line where you can leave me your questions, and I've got some questions there that I want to answer. So this is our time together, trying to do it once a week where I can guide you, I can help you, I can give you some thoughts, and keep you moving on your path to financial freedom. So that's what this is all about. But as we start today, I want to go to something that actually came in this morning, and I started to read it, and it got me thinking about where some of us might be on our journey to financial freedom. And let's look, we want financial freedom, but we really don't want financial freedom as the end goal. And when we understand that the financial freedom is a means to something bigger, and that something bigger is your life. It's your life by choice. It's the things that you want to do, and really start to live a life that is at your own design, at your own hands, at your own calling. I feel blessed in this time because effectively for the last decade, I've had the blessing of being able to wake up in the morning, put my feet on the floor, and make a choice. And that choice is to what do I want to do, how I want to do it, how things go. And I want everyone to have that choice. I think that's what we're here to do, is to be able to live our life based on the choices we want to make and the desires we have. And the financial freedom is one of the avenues that gives us the ability to make those choices. So it's not the financial freedom. I mean, we can get you to build the big bank accounts and all that stuff, but if you have big bank accounts but you're truly not living your life, then what's it worth? And so when we talk about money and when we talk about wealth and all the things that I do in the Money Machine Blueprint and in my book and all that stuff, it's from the spirit of living a life by your own choosing, to have a life, what I call a freedom-based life, a life of choice. And so with that in mind, I want to jump to something. This article came in this morning from one of the news things that I watch called Market Watch, okay? And the headline was this, 401k millionaires became rarer in the first quarter. Art of War, good to see you back again, my friend. So they said they became rarer in the first quarter. In other words, it went down. There's a couple things I want to highlight here because I think it's important for us to understand. 401k millionaires fell to 512,000. Okay, all right, yeah. And look, I'm going to be straight with you. They use that because it gets headlines. Because when we start to look at the masses, you start to see something different, okay? The median balance of a 401k among millionaires is 1.3 million. That's pretty good, okay? And thank you, Alex. But when you look at the average balance of the 401k, it's $127,000. That's not so good. Okay, that's not so good, and we need to understand where this goes, and it depends on who you are. If you look at it, because the baby boomers are 240, almost $250,000. Now let me put this in perspective for you. Okay, there's a study out there that estimates the average medical cost for a retired couple during retirement, during those 30 years of retirement, is going to exceed $315,000. But here they're saying that those closest to retirement, the baby boomers, which I am on the fringe of, okay, but I ain't going anywhere, they have $250,000. Now that doesn't consider like Social Security and anything else. It's just the balance in their 401k. But I would tell you that that is not enough. Then you have Gen X at 187, millennials at 67, Gen Z at 13,000. Average IRA balances are here. Okay. Now, a couple things that I think are good to look at. One is the savings rate in 401k. It's higher than it's ever been. That's a good thing. Okay. 14.3%. And at the surface, that looks okay. We tell people we want 20 to 25% in the wealth priority ladder. But when you start to look at it, the employees are really only saving 9.5% because the employers are putting in the other 5. Okay? It's not enough, just to be straight. Okay? Then the other thing that jumped out at me is that outstanding loans, okay, I'm going to put this in red because this is a no-no. Outstanding loans from your 401k accounts went up to almost 19%, okay? And so 401k loans are a no-no, and we'll talk about that. But here's my take on this article. Great. It's a great article that is talking about 401k millionaires. Let's talk about everyone. Let's just talk about everyone because it's great to be a 401k millionaire, and you can be a 401k millionaire, and we got plenty of people that do that. But we need to take care of ourselves. So there's a couple things that I want you to think about. As the first thing is, I actually think we ought to stop with the millionaire comparisons. Okay? Stop with the millionaire comparisons because they don't serve us. We're not living that millionaire's life. You're not living this millionaire's life. You're living your life. So rather than us focus on a millionaire comparison, what we should be focused on is what is your personal needs? What is the vision you have for your financial life, for your life in general? Health, relationships, wealth, all of it. And let's create the money machine to fulfill those needs. And if it happens to be a 401k millionaire, great. But if it happens to not be, at least you're not living some other person's life. And so hopefully this is making sense, is that I think we should be looking at our own life. It's why I have a downloadable free resource called the Lifestyle Cost Estimator. It allows you to look at your life, figure out what the adjustments are, what you want your life to look like, make some adjustments over time for inflation to see what it's going to cost you down the road. That's what we should be going for. Not comparing to some arbitrary millionaire or arbitrary millionaire number, because some of you might sit back and go, I don't need $1 million with the life that I want. Some might say I need 10 million with the life I want. And there is no judgment. There's just your life. But then we have defined the finish line that we have to go towards. And then we build the plan to make that the reality versus comparing to some arbitrary number, which they're doing here. Two, I think, is savings is not enough. Okay, we're saving, at least in the 401k, almost 15%. I think you need to be at 20 to 25%. That's part of the wealth priority ladder. It's what we kind of recommend. And again, it's defined by the vision you want for your life. And if you're early in life, maybe you're in your 20s, maybe you don't need to invest as much or save as much because you have plenty of time on your side. Maybe you're not in your 20s, maybe you're in your 50s and you go, wow, I can see the light at my retirement tunnel. So I need to start saving more. So rather than just follow arbitrary rules, I want you to get some guidelines, but your individual circumstances will define it, okay? And go from that perspective. The second thing that I think they do in this article is they normalize volatility. Look, the market will always do this, okay? The market will always do this. It's always going to go up and down. It's always going to go up and down. And the degree in which it's going up and down is the volatility. And y'all know that I may not spell right, but volatility. All right. And that volatility starts to wane and erode wealth. If we know this, and we know that when you start to go 10 years plus on your investing and your holding, that your probability of making money is 90% plus, then we need to look at it in a long-term basis. But what this article does ignores is something that we call sequence of return risk. This is fine if you're 20, 30, 40, even 50 years old. But let's say you're 60 and you're looking at retirement in another 5 years. Well, we can't stomach that kind of volatility, and so our portfolio or asset allocation has to change. This happened to my dad when he retired. Literally the year after he retired, the market dropped and his structure wasn't set up right. Now, I wasn't doing any of this back then. He never talked to me about it, but it tanked his retirement. You know, he did fine because he had a pension and all that stuff, but there is something called sequence of return risks, and it's those first 5 years of retirement. If there's a tremendous amount of volatility in the market, it can be really damaging to your future, and they don't talk about that in this article. Then I see what Alex wrote in here also, and I think that he's right, is that they're not talking about Roth here. We ought to be looking at the different buckets of investing. So you have tax-free, which is Roth investing, okay? Roth 401k, Roth IRA. Get it. You may not be able to qualify for a Roth IRA because you might have too much income. Then you might be able to do backdoor Roth, okay? Then you have tax deferred, which is your traditional 401k, 403b, IRAs, where you're putting money in, taking it to tax deduction, and down the road you'll pay the tax. And then you just have your normal taxable account. That's your brokerage accounts. The combination of those, and I give the hierarchy in my book of which ones to hit first in the wealth priority ladder, the combination of those will be the things that you want to look at from the perspective of you're saving 20 to 25%, okay? Now, Alex, you're in a good position. Now, I don't know the numbers, but you've got a maxed out Roth, you got a 457B, and you have a pension. And the 457 is kind of cool because you actually can put money into the 457 and not worry about, you've got two different limits, and you don't have to worry about early withdrawal penalties at 59.5. You've got some leeway there, so it's really cool that you have that. So let's just talk about 401k loans. They talk about the 401k loans here. I think that they're an absolute no-no. The only time you get a 401k loan is when your absolute life depends on it. That's it. Because the 401k loan, although it sounds like a good idea, there are some implications of it. One is this: if for any reason you have a termination of service, you have 60 days to pay that loan back, or it is a taxable, penalizable distribution. So if you take a loan out, you lose your job, and you can't pay it back, you've got not only the loss of the job, now you have a big tax bill on that loan because they deem it a distribution. Two, say you don't lose your job. Many of the places, plans, they stop the match, the employer match, when the loan's outstanding. So you have to get the loan paid back to get the employer match. So you're losing access to the free money. And two, you may lose access to even making contributions until the loan's paid back. So I don't like 401k loans unless you're on death's door. I mean, that's how serious it needs to be. There are other ways to try and figure it out. So these folks that are taking 401k loans are treading on challenging territory at best. Then two other things on this that I think jump out is I want to make sure that you start out doing what we do in the wealth priority ladder, is making sure that you assure yourself of liquidity first, meaning that you have an emergency fund, peace of mind fund in place, or a comfort fund in place. You have a debt payment plan for any destructive debt, consumer debt, stuff for consumables, lifestyle stuff, and then we start to build and invest. That's the priority in the wealth priority ladder. And then the last thing to understand is there's folks that have, if you look at the median here, they don't have a lot saved. And we can kick the can down the road, we can look at it down the road here and everything, but the math won't lie. And so we can't hide from the math and everything, and we will see that math equation is going to come to roost. Someday you're going to decide to retire. What is that going to look like? Someday you might be forced to retire. What is that going to look like? The math will come true. It always will. Now our government hasn't figured that out yet, and we won't get into that, but us as individuals, we need to figure it out that the math will always math. And so we need to do the math right to take care of our life right. All right? Cool. All right. Let's do this. That's what I just wanted to touch on that because I thought there's some things in this article that were alarming, some things that were insightful, but also I think that it smacked of, hey, let's polarize a situation or use the millionaire as the hook to get people in, and I think we need to just compare and live our lives and do it our way. So let's see. I've got some questions that came in, one that I promised I would answer, and I have some more. And if you have questions, let's jump to your questions now and see. It says, Rebecca says, I'm from Cleveland. Welcome, Cleveland. I've invited my 2 college interns, Elizabeth and Hugh, to watch your live chat today. Oh my God. I also recommend that they buy your book, Building Your Money Machine. Yes. Thanks for being here and for all you do. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And Elizabeth and Hugh, if you're watching, welcome aboard. Welcome to the journey. Can't wait for you to all jump in and have some fun. And, listen to Rebecca. Get the book. All right? Get the book and do the work. And I promise you that you will see that a transformational existence. My son is, I don't know how old you are, but my son is 35. His wife is 32. I raised him from 6 years old as a single full-time dad. So he had no choice but the indoctrination and brainwashing from a young age. But here he is at 35 and his wife at 32 with 4 homes and a multi-million-dollar net worth. That means a couple things. One, I know he's not showing up on our doorstep saying I can't afford to live. And two, I'm not showing up on his doorstep. But most importantly, He and his wife are building a life together that they've designed, that they get a chance to live with up my 2 granddaughters and everything, and I think that's a blessing. So doing things early, doing it often, being aggressive on the front end of your retirement, doing the right things will set you up in the early years. Like, they're literally in a position that they stay on track for the next 4 or 5 years. Their machine is built and it will self-fund the rest of their lives. So, all right. So the first question that came in was from a friend. He sent me a note and he says, "Can you speak to the payment of bills? You know, what's the best way to pay bills? Should I put them on a credit card and then pay the credit card? You know, how do I do it?" All right. I know that some people have tried to play the credit card game, and I'm going to get points by paying my bills through the credit cards. You can do that, but it's a dangerous game to play for a couple of reasons. One, if you're not good with credit, if you are not disciplined with credit and you're not paying those credit cards off every month and you're not managing it effectively every month, you can find yourself in a position where you're carrying balances on a credit card for your everyday bills. And when you're carrying balances for your everyday bills, you're living on credit cards. That means you're living beyond your means, and you're carrying it at 28% interest in today's environment. So I'm not a fan of it if you're not disciplined. Two, there are studies out there that show that when we do things on credit cards, even when we pay them off at the end of the month, that the tendency is to overspend by as much as 30%. Because why? Because when they gave us the credit card, I got to be careful because I don't want to show the number, but when they gave us the credit card, okay, when they gave us the credit card, they didn't give us the credit card to give us credit. They didn't care about us having credit. They're sophisticated marketers. The reason they gave us the credit card is to remove the friction from the buying decisions, so it makes it easier to buy. And so when we do that, we will overbuy, and they know that. That's why nowadays all you got to do is tap the credit card or your phone. So we have to be careful about that. Two, I'm just one that sits back. Like, my bills, what I do is I just have them on automatic pay through the bank, e-pay, and just let them get paid automatically. There's no late fees. There's no, I've got it dialed in. I track all my spending. My businesses are tracked through QuickBooks. My personal investing and everything is tracked through Quicken. So, and I've used it for decades. I know that there's some apps and other things out there you could do, but because I have decades of information in there, I'm not going to move over, and that's what I do. But the bottom line is, I literally once a week, the bills come in, put it in the system, make sure that they're scheduled to get paid, and then I'm hands off and I let them get paid. That's what I do. Can you do it in a different way? You can use some software that allocates it, but by and large, I think that first, make sure get your arms around your bills. You know what's coming in, what's coming due, when it's due, because there's something visceral about you understanding that. Second, know exactly when those bills are due. Look at the average payment of all those bills to make sure you're on top of it, and then just get it scheduled with your bank, so it's automatically paid from the bank account, out of sight, out of mind. You'll never get late fees. You'll never do any of that, and that's what I would do. All right. Great question, Jason. Thank you. Alex, talk about the 3 buckets. Are you talking about tell me more, Alex. Are you talking about the tax deferred, the tax free, and the brokerage? Let me know. In the meantime, let me jump to one question that came in that actually was the question that I put in my email. If you're on my email list, you saw it go out. That said, hey, I am making 6 figures, but I still feel broke. Where is all my money going? Now, first things first, I don't know where your money's going. I don't. But clearly it's going somewhere. Here's the thing. You don't have an income problem, okay? You don't have an income problem. Because that's the way this question sounds like. I have an income problem. I don't know what to do. I'm making over six figures, but I'm still broke. You have what I call a margin problem, okay? A margin problem. Think about it this way. You have a personal profit formula, okay? You have a personal profit formula. We all do. And it's effectively our income minus our expenses. It sounds simple. Remember I said the math will always math. That equals your margin. In other words, if this is more than this, we have a problem, Houston. All right? So what needs to happen here is clearly, you know, you're making over six figures here. That's a good living. Now, I get it. There's different costs of livings, different places, and all that stuff. But we need to know what's going on here. So what I want you to do is I want you to track your expenses for the next minimum 30 days. I'd rather you do it for 90 days. And I want you to track what the expense was, the amount, why you spent it, and here's the big important one. What were the emotions you were feeling, or what you were thinking, what you were feeling when you spent it? Why is that important? Because when we do that, we start to identify our spending triggers. Because from this, now we're going to have to break this down and say, what's my needs? What's my wants? And what's the things that I can defer or cancel? Because, like I said, you have a margin problem. You don't have an income problem. Okay? But we need to get to the bottom of it by being a money archaeologist and digging in to make that happen. So track it and look for the leaks. Track it and look for the place that I can plug the leaks. Look for the things that I might be able to adjust because they're wants and not needs. Okay? Math's going to math out. There's no magic formula to say, wait, I'm making six figures. How am I not making my bills? Okay? Cool. Hopefully that helps. All right, let's get to Alex's question. And it's a great question. He's talking about, asking about the three buckets. Okay? We get a chance to invest. When we get a chance to invest, we can invest in three different buckets. I am not an artist, but I like making visuals for you guys, so I'm going to do that. So you have three buckets. The first bucket is what people are used to. This is what I would call our tax deferred. Okay? This is your IRAs. It's your 401k. It's your 457s, your 403bs. Okay? It's your typical retirement. And what happens here is you get a deduction today. In other words, you save taxes today. It grows tax deferred, and when you take it out, and most of the time, unless it's a 457, you have to wait till age 59 and a half to take it out. You pay taxes. It grows tax deferred, but you pay taxes on what you take out at that time, which will typically be ordinary income taxes, so it'll be taxed at the highest tax rate. Okay, that's what's typical. Then you have tax-free, Your tax-free bucket is basically your Roth. And this could be a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. Okay? This one, there's no deduction up front. In other words, you're paying the taxes, no deduction today. You pay the taxes today on your income, but it grows tax-free. And when you take it out down the road, there's no tax at all. These are great. Now, you're limited to it. One, the Roth that has income limitations, so if you make too much income, you can't contribute to it. If you can contribute, you are limited to $7,000 unless you're 50 or over, then you can go to $8,000 a year. So you don't get a lot in there, but what you can get in there is it can be big. But that's also why I like the 401k. If you have a 401k that has the ability to be Roth, depending on your tax bracket, that might be a good thing to do because you avoid the income limit because it doesn't matter, and you can put in almost $23,000. So you bypass that. Okay? So that's the tax-free bucket. And then you have it's the taxable, I'm just going to call it taxable. It's your typical brokerage account. So this is going to be your Schwab's, your Fidelities, your Vanguards, any of your brokerage accounts. You don't get any tax benefits at the beginning when you put money in. You're taking after-tax dollars that you received, you're putting it in there. There's no deductions. The investments in there will grow, and you only pay tax. You pay tax on the investments when you sell them or you get a dividend from them. So you're paying taxes along the way. Now, if you hold the investment for greater than a year, then you can get what's called capital gains treatment on it, which is a maximum of 20% versus you can be well into the 30 and 50% depending on state taxes on ordinary income. So if you're holding your investments for greater than a year, you can get favorable tax treatment on sale in this account. Now, there's a couple of other things to consider that are in here. One is these accounts have something called required minimum distributions. So they're not going to let you defer your taxes forever. Between ages 73 and 75, depending when you're born, they're going to force you to take it. And basically, they just say, okay, you've had enough of a ride, and now you need to take the money out. And they force you to take it even if you don't need the money so they can get their tax. They want to get their pound of flesh. The Roths have no RMD. Okay? So that's another benefit to having Roths. Okay? That it doesn't apply here. Okay? So that's a quick summary of the three buckets. When you're building your wealth, and we have the hierarchy in the book, you would like to have dollars allocated in all three buckets. Because what it allows you to do is then engineer what your tax bill will be down the road. By deciding, I'm going to take a certain amount from my brokerage, I'm going to take a certain amount from tax-free, I'm going to take a certain amount from tax-deferred. Okay? So hopefully that helped, Alex, with that. Julie, you know what? There's a couple things here. First off, if you came into multiple nine figures, congratulations. All right. Second, this is not a question that'll be answered on a live stream on social. You need a plan. You need someone. Now, I'm going to warn you, and I don't know your situation, and I'm more than happy to chat with you about it, but I'm going to warn you that there will be people coming out of the woodworks to want to try and tell you where to put your money so they can take their pound of flesh. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to do nothing until you allow the emotional dust to settle. Anytime we have a windfall, we do that. Now, I don't know whether it was a sale of a company, an inheritance, or something like that. But also, I don't know if you have advisors. If you have advisors, then they should have a plan for you to make sure that, one, you preserve the money, but that you're putting it away and using it in a way to allow you to live the life that you want to live, to get behind the movements, the missions, the generosity, the charity, the lifestyle, all those things, and not allowing it to create entitlement. I'm not saying in you, but in people around you, and that kind of thing. There's a lot of different ways that this money can be used, and you have a lot of it to work from, but it really needs to be specific to you. So this is something that I think you need to get very direct advice once the person has a complete understanding of what you have, what you desire, what you're working with, and what your vision is. All right? If you need guidance with it, let me know. Just DM me, ping me, and we can chat further. But what I don't want you to do is get taken. Okay? I don't, just so you know, I'm not here to sell investments, insurance. I don't do that. I work with people to help them understand what to do and facilitate making sure that they're taken care of, that they're safe, and that their dreams become their realities. Okay? And I will a lot of times act as the liaison between all the advisors. I act as a family CFO for 3 to 4 families a year in that capacity, just to be that checks and balance and ask the difficult questions going, why are we going in this? What's the commissions here? Why are we doing this? How is this moving us forward? And being that voice of reason and critical thinking in the process. But what I want you to do, Julie, is, like I said, I'm more than happy to chat with you. You need something much more specific than, hey, let me tell you what, put it in an index fund and all that stuff. No, there are some things that need to be in place, especially depending on age stage. You said you want to take care of you for your next 20 years. Well, do you have kids? Do you have grandkids? All that stuff, we got to figure it out. All right? I know I didn't answer your question, but hopefully I got you to pull the reins back and say, hey, let me get some real help. And if you need guidance with that, reach out to me and let me see if we can get you with the right people in the right way and everything, and do it that way. So, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. All right. Let's see. Other questions coming in. Let me see what other questions have come in online and all that. All right. This one came in and says, we want to buy a home next year. What do we need to have saved to make it happen? All right. Yeah, Julie, just reach out to me and we'll make sure we get you the right advice, because they'll come out of the woodworks, and I'll get to the question, but this is important. They'll come out of the woodworks, but are they the right ones for you? I'll get you some questions to ask them, some interview questions that you can ask them. We'll make sure that you're protected in this whole thing. Okay. So, want to buy a house in a year? Then let's just talk about home buying in general. Does it make sense to buy a home? Now, I remember having this conversation with someone from my publishing team when my book was coming out, and this person, I was sitting on Zoom with them, and they said, I don't know that I'll ever buy a house. And I said, why is that? He said, I don't know that I could ever afford it. I go, okay, fair enough. You know, interest rates are up, housing prices are up. I totally get it. I said, but why do you want a house? And he looked at me and he says, well, it's the American dream. I said, you're right, it is the American dream. At least that's what they tell us. I said, but my question is it your dream? And he sat there and he goes, well, I never thought of that. I mean, because you're not put here to live the American dream, you're put here to live your dream. And if that involves home ownership, great. If it doesn't, it's okay. It's okay. So I love home ownership, but I'm not one that says it's the foundation of all your wealth. Now, there's some good things that happen with home ownership. One, you got a forced savings plan in there if you make the payments, because someday you pay down the loans and now you have equity in a property, but you also have something that's illiquid. You also have something that's costing you to maintain every year. Okay, so let's not forget about that. But two, buying a home is a long-term asset, use asset. That means that the first thing I would say is to Jenny here that asked the question is this an area that you want to stay in for 7 to 10 years? 7 to 10 years. If it's not, then I wouldn't buy a home there. Because unlike other investments, index funds and stocks and things like that, you can't just get in and out of them. There's friction costs, there's selling costs, there's commissions, there's putting it on the market, there's all of that. So if this is buying a home for the next 3 to 5 years, I wouldn't do it. You need to be able to be there for 7 to 10 years for it to start making sense. And I'm okay with renting in that time frame. I'm okay with it. Some people will say, oh, you're throwing money away. Am I? I'm paying for flexibility. And I actually have a calculator that'll help you look at what the differential is between, and it's a free download, home buy calculator, where it will look at your ability, the cost of the home, not only the cost of the home, but the cost of the maintaining the home. Because we fail to think about all the expenses, the utilities, the repairs, all those expenses are costs of maintaining them. All those costs compared to if I rented and invested the difference, what happens to our net worth? And you play the numbers and you can look at it. So presumably if you're in a position that, hey, this is where I want to be for 7 to 10 years and home buying makes sense, then here's how I would look at it. Interest rates are up. They haven't come down yet. We don't know what's going to happen with the Fed. There seems to be a pissing contest, pardon the expression, between Trump and Powell as far as lowering interest rates. But there still seems to be speculation that interest rates will drop towards the last quarter of the year. They expect maybe 2 decreases. But it depends on what the data shows and what's happening in the economy. So you can buy a home, know that the interest rates are a little higher than they once were. I don't think you're going to see 3% again for a while, if we ever see it again. But we could see 4.5 to 5, but we're over 6 right now. Which means that you need to look at how much home you can afford. I don't want your housing costs, rent or otherwise, to exceed 35% of your income. 35% income. Now, when I say housing costs, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, all of it. So now you have a math game to sit back and say, how much down payment do I need to put on a home to keep my housing costs below 35%? You're going to have to be prepared for some closing costs on the home. So you may be buying a home for $450,000, okay? But know that that's not what you're getting it for, because there's going to be closing costs and fees and everything associated with it. So it might be $470,000. And some of that will get wrapped in the loan, which will change the loan amount. the payment amount. So just be prepared for that. But you need to save your down payment, and that down payment could be anywhere from 5% to 20%. If it's below 20%, you might have PMI, which I don't like, but you got to put that into the equation also. Your money you're saving for the down payment can't be in the stock market because there's too much volatility there. So you're going to put it in a high yield savings account, keep it insured, keep it stable, keep it safe. So when you need it, it is accessible. When you buy a home, the tendency is to buy the home and forget about everything else that needs to come along with it. So you got to look at it and say, post-purchase, you need to have 3 to 6 months of home expenses and reserves, because you got to furnish it. You might have to put window coverings on it. All these things that you have to do, that you might have to do when you first get in, because now all of a sudden you got a new home. That couch from the old apartment doesn't fit in the new home, so I got to go get a new couch. But if I get a new couch, I got to get a new end table. And if I get a new end table, how about the dining table? And all of a sudden, you go on a spending spree to fulfill the home. And we don't realize it. And so it's important for us to think beyond the purchase and do that. So here's the deal. Minimum 7 years in the home. Down payment between 5 and 20% in a high yield savings account. Make sure that you have a reserve for whatever you're going to do post purchase to the home in place, in cash. And then make sure that your total housing costs do not exceed 35% of your income. That's what I would do. Okay? Cool. Hope that helps. And congratulations if you buy a home. All right? The other thing to do is this. Negotiate like crazy. Look for the homes that haven't hit the market yet. We bought our home on the beach. It was on and off the market like 4 times. It fell out of escrow 4 times. This person really wanted to get rid of the home, and I knew the story behind the home. We came in with 50% down, a lot of cash. I came in and I said, here's the deal. We want this home, but we have 2 other homes that we're looking at in the same neighborhood. We're going to go into escrow on one of these homes. Yours is at the top of the list. But the only way we're going to take this home is if you take our deal, and our deal is X dollars, 50% down, close in 30 days. Now, I know that you dropped out of escrow 3-4 times already. You can chance it and try to get your premium dollar, but you won't get someone with 50% down, and you won't get someone that'll close in 30 days. You decide. You have 5 hours. I give them 5 hours to take or break or walk away from the deal, and they took the deal. So the more you come in with from a cash standpoint, the more attractive you are as a buyer, the better it'll be in your negotiating. So be attractive as a buyer. This leads me to one other thing that I didn't say, but make sure that you've actually checked your credit, pull your credit report, and make sure that it is clean, clear, and there's nothing in there that shouldn't be in there. And get that cleaned up before you start house hunting. All right, cool. All right, let's look at some other questions. Thank you, Suzette. But Suzette, you know me. I negotiate everything. Stephanie wasn't part of that, because had she known that I was pulling that gambit, if you will, she'd have shot me. But I told her afterwards. All right, let's look at this. Oh, this is a cool one. We just had a baby. Congratulations. Congratulations. What are the smart money moves we should make right now? All right. So here's the thing. First off, congratulations. I think parenthood is, look, it's a lot of work, but being a dad has been one of the greatest gifts. One of my greatest life's teachers is my son. Just navigating all of that, and him and I and our journey together and all that stuff and everything. So, but they're asking, should I start opening up a 529 plan and all that stuff? Well, here's a couple things before we get there. And I know that we want to take care of our babies and want to take care of our children, But what we need to take care of first is ourselves. Because if we are financially stressed, if we are hitting the skids from a financial standpoint, it doesn't serve our children. And having a bunch of money in a 529 plan when we can't pay our bills doesn't make sense. And it's why the wealth priority ladder is built the way it is, and why college funding is up higher in the ladder. Because here's the things that we do know. At some point you will retire. At some point you will decide that you don't want to work. And when you do, you have very few options, and we talked about it at the very beginning with that article, on funding your retirement. You have a pension plan, which most companies don't have much of these days. So you have your retirement plans, so your 401ks and your IRAs and things like that. You have Social Security, which is basically poverty living if that's your sole source of income, and other government handouts or your kid's couch, okay? You don't have the ability to finance your retirement. And that's why I say it has to be, the certainty of your retirement coming has to be taken care of first. Then we can turn our eyes towards taking care of the college for the kids. Now, I'm talking specifically about the college funding right now, because think about the college. They have other alternatives. They can get scholarships. We can work with them to make sure they get good grades to get scholarships, athletic scholarships, grants, work programs. They can go to community college. They can do loans if they do them correctly and have a way to do loans that doesn't get them buried, okay? They can get all those things. So there's a lot of different ways to pay for college versus paying for your retirement. So that's why I say before we start funding their college, let's make sure that we're fully funding, not completely funded, but fully funding your future first. Take care of the certainty of your future before the uncertainty of them taking college. Now, what should you do as a new parent? One, get some sleep. But two is a couple things. One, liquidity matters now because you have other people depending on you. That means it's really important to make sure that you have a fully funded emergency fund in place. Now, some people will say 3 to 6 months. I think you need to be pushing 9 to 18 months, okay? Two, I would check and make sure that you have good medical insurance to take care of the medical needs as your baby grows, okay? So make sure that you have the right medical insurance in place. Now, you can, depending on what you have access to, you can get, that doesn't mean that you have to have really low deductibles, because part of the emergency fund could be used to fund the deductibles and do it from that perspective. But you want to make sure that you have good medical coverage. The other thing I want to do is, now you have a child and you have a wife and you have you need life insurance. Because now life insurance, let's just get clear of what life insurance is. Life insurance isn't to make everyone rich when you're gone. Life insurance is to facilitate them being able to live and keep their lifestyle, which means that it's an income replacement tool. It's a wealth preservation tool. It is not an investment tool. So I'm talking about term life insurance that you might get that is very cost effective, simply to sit back and say, I'm going to be able, if God forbid something happens, my family is taken care of. Now, I don't know your situation, if if both the parents work, or if it's a single parent household, working parent household, doesn't matter. But the mistake that some people will make when they start looking at life insurance, they'll say, my spouse stays at home with the kids, so we'll get life insurance on me because I make the money. Oh, no. You're able to make the money because the spouse is at home with a kid. Let's not devalue the home spouse that's taking care of the kid. That's the hardest job of all. So there may be life insurance needs for the person that's earning the income, and life insurance needs for the person taking care of the child so you can earn the income, because God forbid something happens to them, how are you going to continue to earn the income to take care of the child? So life insurance becomes important. Legal documents become important, like a will, a trust, guardianship, all these things that maybe you didn't really worry about and didn't think about need to be thought about now. And then I would start to look at my budgets. You're going to go through a whole lot of diapers, and then diapers cost dollars. So you're going to need to have that stuff dialed in, which means that you need to be tracking your costs. Now, let's just talk about this idea of budget, because a lot of people say, "Oh, no, budget's like a diet." I don't want to do that. All right. There is a difference between budgeting, tracking, and planning. Okay? Budgeting is when some people will sit down. It's just like and create a budget. Here's what we're going to spend. And you put it down on this beautiful chart. And then you do nothing with it. It doesn't do anything to change your behaviors. Then there's those people that don't do budgeting, but they track. They track every dollar, every receipt, and they put it in and they track it. And they know every month how much they spent. But they don't use it to manage their spending. They don't use it to change behaviors. And then there's those that plan. And that's when they bring the tracking and the budgeting together. And when they bring the tracking and budgeting together with a dose of accountability, now the plan comes to life. So what we need to do is determine what we will spend through the budget. To track what we do spend through our actions. To compare it to the plan to get to the vision we want and see if it keeps us on track, and make it accountable so we make adjustments on a regular basis to make the plan the reality. When you come into it as new parents, lots of things are changing. Besides emotions, life, everything, the sleep patterns, all of it is going to change. And I'm a granddad twice over and everything, but so what I want you to do is get really clear on what your spending is. That's awareness. But then I want you to get really clear on what your vision is. That's the vision and the plan. Then we track in between, and you all sit down every single month looking at the numbers and make adjustments to your behaviors. Now, be really careful here. The mistake that most people make when they have their money dates is that they talk just about the math. They talk just about the numbers, and they go, "Honey, we spent way too much on diapers." That kind of dialogue creates friction, resistance, criticism, frustration, aggravation, because we're talking about the tactics of what we're doing. I want every single conversation, every single money date to start with a reconnection to the vision for your life. Money is meant to bring you together and keep you together, to create a life together. Not to be this divisive thing. And yet they say that money is the second leading cause of divorce. It's because we're talking about the money and not talking about the life. And so I want you to connect it to the life you want and then say, "Hey, how did we do?" And we are not looking at the person because the person did nothing. There was a behavior, there were choices, but we're not judging individuals in this process. We are just adjusting what we do to keep us moving forward. Y'all are going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. I overspend, I underspend. There are things that come to our door. I see boxes and boxes. I go, "What is happening?" Okay? And so it happens. But rather than allow it to separate you, allow it to refine your conversations towards the life and the dream life you want. All right, I hope that helps. I didn't give you a ton of things to do financially, but without this as the underpinning, where you put the money isn't going to matter. Okay, so I hope that helps. All right, y'all. Oh man, how did the hour go so fast? Let me know if there's any last minute questions. Otherwise, we will close this one out, and we'll pick it back up in next week's show. And if you have questions, if things come up, send them to me so I'll put them on the list. I'll bring them up, and remember to join me and let other people know that this is a weekly show. As much as I can do it every week on Wednesday mornings at 8 a.m. Pacific time, I'll be here. Might be in a hotel, but I'll be here unless I'm on a plane. And the whole point is to give you some guidance, to shine a light, to give you a safe place to have conversations. Cool. Here's a good question from my friend Suzette. What questions should we be asking ourselves weekly around money? Hopefully it's not like, where did it all go? And everything. Thank you so much. So what questions should we be asking ourselves around money? Most of it is really, thank you, Julie. Feel free to reach out to me, and so what questions do we ask about money? I actually look at my finances because I'm a finance nerd. I look at them weekly, so I will look at my spending weekly. I snapshots of my receipts, and they automatically upload into the system and all that stuff, and everything. But what I would track is on a regular basis a scoreboard, and we have scoreboards in the Money Machine Blueprint that you walk through. But I track my cash balances, I track my cash received, I track my cash outflows, and I track my debt. And then I look at my investments, and I look at the change investments. What I need to be careful about is making emotional decisions around the investments, because if you look at the volatility since the beginning of the year, it looks crazy, and it's up and down. But if I look at, let me just see. So this is year to date. S&P 500. Okay, so if I look at this is what I don't want people to get themselves in trouble with, is that if you look at here, okay, this is the S&P 500. If I look at this point here, was obviously we tanked, we dropped a lot, and if we start to make emotional decisions here about our investing, because I'm looking at it on a weekly basis, then what did we miss? We missed this going back up, and we actually missed it coming back and surpassing the high point here. So what we need to be aware of is that we don't allow the fact that we're looking at our finances on a weekly basis to change our thinking. You set an investment plan in place, you follow the plan. You know that the market's going to go up and down in the short term. In the long term, it has a long-term upward trajectory. If I look at this same chart and I took it from, that's year to date from the beginning of the year. This is 1 year. This is 2 years. Okay, you see what's happening with it. If I go out 5 years, what's the angle? Remember I said 10 years? So there's going to be gyrations in here all the time, okay? And we got to understand this is the COVID drop, okay? But people freaked out in the COVID drop, and then they lost out on all this. And then we had this drop, but we're back up. So what I don't want your weekly conversations to do is to change your strategy. In that way, okay, and everything. So most of your weekly questions will revolve around awareness of where you're at, awareness of what's coming due, awareness of what's coming in, and any possible changes that I need to make. Okay? Hopefully that helps. Jose, tell me what your question was. Yeah, yeah, I do it. I do it weekly, and then on a monthly basis, I reconcile all of my accounts and I make sure that everything is dialed in. But I look at things on a weekly basis. Jose, let me know what your question is because I didn't see a question in it. It says I have near 400,000 euro in savings. I would convert a part to dollars. I'm not sure what the question is. Cool. All right. Jose. All right, maybe Jose's not with us anymore. All right, Jose, if you are and I miss it, rephrase the question, get it to me, and we'll make sure we get it answered. All right, y'all. I oh here it is. Yeah, I understand you want to go from euro. Are you asking me if you should convert euros to dollars? I don't. I'm not understanding what the question is. There has to be a reason to convert from euros to dollars. And if you're trying to make money on foreign exchange, it's not something that I do, so I'm not sure I can advise you here in any way. But you know, I'm not sure what specific the question is. So, cool. All right. Give me a specific question, Jose, and I'll answer it on another one of the episodes. All right. Send it to me. Send it to me as a DM or something, and we'll make sure that we get it answered. All right. But I needed to be specific. Why are we converting? What is the purpose of it? Why what's making you think about converting? All those things, and we'll get it dialed in. All right, y'all. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you found it valuable, and I hope to see you on future shows. But for me, it's always so much fun having conversations with you all and being able to shine the light and give you some guidance on your path to your financial future, your financial freedom. I think financial freedom is your birthright. We just got to go claim it. All right. It's not about us trying to find a way to sell investments, insurance, or any of that stuff to you. I want to equip you. I want to empower you. I want to educate you. So you are at the helm and at the captain of your financial ship. So you're no longer dependent or feel like you're at the whim of and the mercy of other people making decisions about your financial future. Okay. So, all right, Jose, I still don't understand the question. So let's see if we can get more into it. I have 400,000 euros in savings, and I would pass 200,000 in dollars. I don't know what that means. So I until I get a good question, I don't have anything to answer. I apologize. Let's pick it up on the next episode, the next show, and let's see if I can get you help in the right direction. All right, Jose? Thank you. All right, y'all. You have an incredible day, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.